Okay guys, one of the things that is really critical to the function of this camera is making sure that the different parts as you assemble them are overlapped correctly. And if you look carefully at these illustrations, you'll notice that I drew the parts as clearly as I could, showing the overlaps. And by that I mean at the very end where they come together, there's always a piece that overlaps the other piece. So you can see here that A extends over the end of B when the piece is oriented this way. If you get the overlaps wrong, if it's supposed to be like this, but you do it like this, then the dimensions change and the camera parts won't function together. So in order to do this and to just assemble in general, I'm going to show you a couple little tricks. So we've already talked about splitting the tape in half because we don't need tape that wide for these little parts. I'm going to start with the focal plane, and I've got my parts A, B, and C here. I'm going to assemble the outer perimeter. The A's and B's create the outer perimeter of this particular component, but the assembly of all those different boxes will be very similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay A out, and I'm going to lay B right next to it. I'm going to take one of my pieces of tape that has been cut in half, and I'm going to put it right up to the edge. I'm going to split the seam. In other words, put the tape half on each piece here, right along the seam. And I'm going to flip it over and trim it right up to the end. Now, as the illustration shows here, part A overlaps part B. So what I'm going to need to do is kind of pull it when I turn it so that A is extending over the edge of B. Okay, we're going to do that again here. Moving on down the line, now I need another A, and I'm going to try to split the tape half and half. Trim it, and then again, this A needs to overlap part B. So I'm going to kind of actually push it out a little bit and then flip it down. Okay, now we've got 3 pieces. Let's go with another B here. It over, trim it right up to the edge. You don't want to have to wrap excess tape around to the inside, what will become the inside of the component. We want to try to eliminate any tape from the inside. You want it to all be on the outside of the parts. Okay, now for the last one where they come together, obviously I'm not going to be able to lay it out and do it the exact same way. But what I am going to do is, again, I know A overlaps B, so I'm going to kind of pull it out and make it so it is on the top, overlapping B. Same thing down here. Same thing here. And now I've got one more little piece. The last one's always the trickiest. So I'm just gonna Okay, again, I want to make sure A overlaps B, not this way. Okay, this would be B overlapping A. A overlaps B. So on this one, I'm just going to hold it together nice and tight. Put the tape on. Now what you can actually do is just kind of trim it in two little passes. That is this way, and then this way you can trim that tape off. Okay, now here's a part that people are sometimes a little confused about. The backs are what I refer to on the sheets as the tops, like C, G, and J. Right now it looks like the top, so we'll keep calling it a top. They overlap all of the side pieces. So this piece, when it goes on there, it should extend all the way to the outermost edge of all your pieces. So best way to do this, we'll use one that's already cut in half. Well, there are many ways to do it, but one way that works for me is to put the tape upside down and then just drop your section down on top of it. Then you can take your top piece, put it snug right up to the edge, and then fold it up nice and tight, lined up. You can bring this piece all the way up, bring this piece up. You want these to be nice and tight. We want to make sure there's no gaps that let light in. Okay, so then I can go back to these corners. This is probably easier done with some scissors, and we just cut those corners. Okay, these are kind of junky scissors, but I do have some better ones for you. And what we want to do then is just, once you have those corners cut, you can fold these pieces over and have nice, tight corners that don't have a bunch of tape all bunched up and gummed up. Okay, then we'll repeat this with the other side. And now that it's kind of stable, I don't need to use the upside down tape method. I can just put it right on here like this. Again, make sure your seams are nice and tight before you assemble. Okay, so I'm squishing those together. Laying down the tape. Squish them together. And I'm going to go back, cut my corners so they'll lay down nice and flat. And that will help keep light out of the inside of the box. Same basic process for all three of the main components. This is the focal plane. It goes on the back of the camera. Or no, it goes inside the camera. So it'll fit right in there like that. Okay. There you have it. Construction 101.